All right, so an interesting topic has started to kind of buzz in the MMA world now, and that is that Jiri Prochazka is possibly considering a move down to 185 pounds. And we even heard Dricus Du Plessis, in an interview say, look, I think the guy's too small for the light heavyweight division. I think that he, middleweight would serve him well. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about if I think this happens, and if it does, really what we're looking at here with Jiri Prochazka in terms of the middleweight division. And the first thing I got to say is, in a way, selfishly, I don't want to see Jiri do that. And the reason for that being, the light heavyweight division has been absolutely atrocious for such a long time, right? Ever since the UFC has basically been in existence, the 205-pound division has always been kind of looked at as like the golden division it used to be back in the day, right? We had Rampage Jackson, we had Chuck Liddell, we had Rashad Evans, we had John Jones, we've had unbelievable talent inside the 205-pound division. But ever since that wave has kind of exited and Jones moved up to heavyweight, a lot of guys retired, we don't have the same type of effect at light heavyweight. And what I mean is the division's just flat out stale, right? I mean, we have Alex Pineda, who's exciting. We have a couple other names, but it's really missing that spark that makes the division entertaining. And that's why I selfishly maybe don't want to see him move down, because I do think that Jiri could potentially be a champion again at 205. However, I think that there's a real shot that this happens. And I really think that this is something Jiri Prochazka is going to consider, because if we look around the UFC and you are going to say, look, Jake, who do you think has the discipline and the capabilities to be like, look, I got to cut an extra 20 pounds and get down to another weight class? Jiri Prochazka is one of the names I'm going to bring up, because when we talk about dedication, being able to kind of go to some of those dark places and be able to mentally overcome just about anything, and is maybe a little weird, right? Jiri Prochazka is a little bizarre and has kind of those unique qualities that you would look at in terms of discipline and dedication. Jiri Prochazka is definitely one of those names that comes to mind, at least in my eyes. So the thought of him going down to middleweight, I like the idea. I think that, one, Jiri Prochazka could do incredibly well in the weight class, right? I think that Jiri does lack a little bit in the wrestling department, but he does have some pretty good submissions. And in terms of the striking, I think Jiri could sit there and strike with just about everybody. And I think that power would definitely carry down to 185 pounds. I mean, Dricus Du Plessis is talking about him moving down. Now, Dricus is saying, look, I'm bigger than this guy in terms of, we weigh in. I'm a heavier dude than Jiri Prochazka, which is crazy to think about. But if you look at the potential matchups down at 185 for Jiri, I can't help but look around and go, man, what does a matchup with him and Izzy look like? What does a matchup with him and, a Jared Cannonier look like? Or a DDP even? These matchups that could potentially be on the table for Jiri Prochazka, I think, are outstanding. And when we look at the middleweight division, I really do think it does have a deeper talent pool than light heavyweight. And if you're Jiri Prochazka, you have to sit back and kind of ask yourself this question. Right now, he's probably not going to get the rematch with Alex Pineda next. Unless Magomed Ankalaev and the UFC can't come to terms to get him in there sooner than Abu Dhabi, because Alex is like, look, I don't want to wait that long. I want to get back in there as soon as I can. And Magomed's like, I'm fighting in Abu Dhabi. First of all, who the hell's Ankalaev to call the shots, dude? You're not the champ. Alex has defended the title. He's basically going to call the shot, and that's what the UFC's probably going to go off of. He wants to be active. He's not going to probably wait around until October to fight you in Abu Dhabi. So there could be a possibility in which we see Jiri get a potential title shot and get that rematch with Alex. But if that doesn't happen, when you look around the division, what really else makes sense for Jiri Prochazka? I thought that we would maybe see him versus Jamal Hill next. I thought maybe we took out Rakic. So just really looking at how stale that division is, him going down to middleweight, to me, opens up a door to so many opportunities to where Jiri is so loved by the fans, man. Jiri Prochazka is not only one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. I know he doesn't have the crazy social media following, but people love this guy, man. He is not a dislike guy by any means. You can't really dislike Jiri Prochazka. The dude is dedicated. He's really a good fighter. He's entertaining, and he's just the samurai way, man. The guy is awesome. So to see him go down to middleweight and see these potential matchups that could kind of open the door, where I think there's a lot of opportunity for him down there, right? I don't think that, we have Hamzat who's about to fight Whitaker. We have Strickland and Costa. We have some guys tied up with some matchups, and presumably DDP versus Israel Adesanya. But I can see a scenario where we get a potential matchup. Like Jared Cannonier doesn't have a dance partner. Does Jared Cannonier and Jiri Prochazka sometime this summer not sound like an outstanding matchup? I think that's an incredible fight. They may even wait and add that if they do decide to do DDP versus Izzy in Perth, Australia. I believe that would be like, 305 or something like that. I could absolutely see the UFC booking a co-main event, or maybe they'll want Volkanovski or someone else on the card along. I don't know what they'll do there. Because maybe Volk fights Ilya, but you get my point. So outside of them wanting to highlight some sort of guy from Australia, maybe a JDM or something in the co-main event, I could absolutely see Jiri Prochazka getting a huge opportunity to where Jiri would then fight the winner of DDP and Adesanya. And you might say that sounds crazy, but when you look around the middleweight division, we've already seen Strickland versus DDP. We've already seen Izzy's basically ran through everybody. So depending on what happens, maybe there's some potential rematches for DDP, but a fresh, entertaining name like Jiri Prochazka. I can't help but contain my excitement, man, of this guy going down to 185. First, can he make the weight? That's something that I think he would probably have to do a test cut or something along those lines to make sure he can make the weight, make sure he feels good. Because if he is as light as he's saying, right, and apparently Jiri doesn't walk around much heavier than 205. If that is true, and he can safely get down to 185, rehydrate and feel good, that seems like a nightmare matchup for just about everybody down at middleweight, man. Because Jiri Prochazka, I don't think he's that undersized at light heavyweight. Maybe I'm a little crazy there. Feel free to comment your take below. But I feel like when I'm looking at Jiri in there, I know Rakic. First of all, if people are going off of Yuri's undersized, Alexander Rakic is enormous. He's one of the biggest light heavyweights we have. But we saw Jiri in there with Alex Pineda. He didn't look undersized to me. He's a tall guy. He's got a solid reach. He's got ridiculous power in his hands to where I absolutely think Jiri Prochazka could go down to middleweight, and I think he could be very effective. Now, whenever you go up a weight class, it's normally, okay, the power is different to where in this case, he would be going down to middleweight, which is where middleweight's one of those divisions where we really kind of see this at 170, but I'll go and say 185. We see where there's guys that still have some speed, but that power starts to, be a lot more significant than down in some of the lighter weight classes. That's really where we see a shift at 185 is the power. And Jiri Prochazka is going to probably have the power advantage or is going to be right there with anybody at 185. But in terms of the speed, I can see that being a little bit of an issue for Jiri down at 185 because even at light heavyweight, Jiri isn't exactly the fastest guy, right? He relies heavily on kind of being unorthodox, some just unpredictable maneuvers, techniques, the way he's moving is very odd, and all of those different things is what makes Jiri very effective. It's not necessarily his speed, it's he does have crazy power, and he's very unpredictable to when you don't really know what the hell he's doing, and then when he does it, you're getting clipped with a shot like Rakic was, and then you're getting finished. So when I look at this, at the end of the day, I think Jiri Prochazka should go down to middleweight. I think that if he's in a position where the UFC says, look, we're giving Ankalaev the next title shot, we're not going to give you a rematch right away, and it's kind of one of those games. I don't see any reason that Jiri can't go down to 185 because say he goes down there and say he loses, right? Say they throw him in there because the reason I keep bringing up Jared Cannonier, Jared's a guy that used to fight at heavyweight. The dude's built like a brick. He has he's a very well-rounded fighter. Do we not think that Jiri has a very good shot of beating Cannonier? I think Jiri could go in there and beat Cannonier. I think he could go in there and knock him out because Yuri's going to be bigger. Jared's kind of used to being this, bigger guy and kind of imposing his will on people, but he's not like a one-shot knockout guy by any means. Down at middleweight, he's been able to put a beating on people, but we haven't seen him just really starching people. So I think that that's not a terrible matchup for Jiri Prochazka. Obviously, it concerns me with the lack of leg kick defense that we've seen of Jiri Prochazka, which, people want to argue back and forth. His lack of leg kick defense is, getting his leg out of the way, checking where he kind of just steps in and throws straight shots. With Yates, that's a counter, but you can only take so many shots to the leg before it starts to add up and hinders your movement. But I really believe if Jiri Prochazka decides to commit and go down to 185, I think he can be very successful. And I think that there's a shot that he could be the champ down at that weight class. Because when I look at any time a fighter goes to a different weight class and they already kind of have a name, it's exciting. It's exciting because it opens up a door to all new matchups, all new style clashes, all new everything to where it just really gives them a rebirth in a sense. Now, like I said, the only way I really see this happening is if Jiri is not on the cusp of getting another title shot. And like I said, the light heavyweight division is very thin. It's very stale. It's not exactly the most exciting. The reason it's exciting is because we have Alex Pineda and Jiri Prochazka is entertaining. But I don't know if they're going to give him the rematch right away because Ankalaev technically probably should get the next shot considering he's on the win streak. He's the only one that really hasn't had a crack at Pineda inside the top echelon right now that's on a winning streak. So I think Jiri should go down to 185. I think he should do it. I think that we should see it in the next couple months as long as he can make the weight, which I believe he can, because if there's somebody disciplined, somebody that's going to be able to cut down and do it, I think it's Jiri Prochazka, and I think he would have a lot of success down at middleweight. I think his power would translate. I think the speed aspect he might have to adjust to, but overall, somebody's going to change weight classes and be successful doing it. I think Jiri Prochazka is one of those guys. But do me a favor, like this video, comment your take below. Do you think Jiri goes down to 185? Would you like to see him at 185? And subscribe to the channel. Help your boy out. I appreciate you all. See you next time.